talking about Sun, Mercury, and Capricorn. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Sun and Mercury have different relationships with Saturn. Perhaps there's a lack of confidence, but you can develop skills and intelligence at this time. So check it out. Hey, it's Sam, and I'm talking about Sun, Mercury in Capricorn. When we have Sun and Mercury in Capricorn, we are talking about these two planets in the sign ruled by Saturn, and any kind of conjunction is going to be most meaningful when you assess its relationship to the sign ruler. So again, if you were to have Sun Mercury in Aries, it would be very different than Sun Mercury in Capricorn, even though it's Sun and Mercury. So the first place that you start with conjunctions is actually the sign that it's in, not necessarily the two planets. Now, of course, the two planets are also important because they'll have a natural relationship with each other. Sun and Mercury are somewhat neutral toward each other. Mercury is pretty friendly toward the Sun, and the Sun is somewhat inimical or somewhat neutral toward Mercury. So it's one of these relationships that, like a lot of planetary relationships, are sort of neutral toward each other. Sometimes there's like hostility toward each other. Sometimes there's friendship. Sometimes there's neutrality. For example, the Sun's relationship with Saturn, the ruler, is mutually unfriendly. Sun and Saturn are inimical toward each other. Mercury's relationship to Saturn is friendly. They're mutually friendly. So when you see that kind of interaction where there's a conjunction and one planet is mutually friendly with the ruler and the other one is mutually inimical with the ruler, then you know that in this particular version of the conjunction, one planet's going to be more dominant or prominent in its capacity. So when you get Sun Mercury in Capricorn, you're going to know that Mercury will be sort of getting the better of that conjunction in that sign. Okay, now what this means is that the reason Mercury has a better relationship with Saturn, there are several reasons. Mercury and Saturn both rule the same elements. They both rule earth and air signs. They're both neutral planets. They're not masculine or feminine charged. And in particular, the way this plays out is the sort of flexibility and intelligence and discrimination and neutrality of Mercury, and also the practical and intellectual quality, helps to take the more fearful and guarded and intense qualities of Saturn and make them less intense and worrisome and, pressurized. So one of the things that happens when you get Mercury in Capricorn is he becomes very focused and serious, which is good because Mercury can tend to be unserious. So Mercury energy in Capricorn is operating in an environment that helps to really slow down, which is one of the problems with Mercury, is it's too fast, ground that energy, and bring its detailed, oriented quality into something that's applicable, practical, that'll produce a tangible result, because that's the nature of Capricorn, not just an intellectual result. And again, Saturn actually supports both, because Saturn also rules an air sign, Aquarius, but in Capricorn it slows down more. It takes that quality of Mercury and slows it down and makes it more practical and brings out a more Virgo quality of Mercury, not so much a Gemini quality of Mercury. And this is something else that you can do when you're looking at planets in a masculine or a feminine sign. You can see that it's going to support the masculine or feminine quality of that planet more. So because Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo, and Capricorn is a feminine sign. Capricorn is going to bring out the feminine quality of Mercury, which is more like Virgo. Masculine quality is more like Gemini. So you'll see where Mercury in Capricorn has a more Virgo-ish kind of approach to those details, more practical, slowing things down, and taking the seriousness and stress and worry of Capricorn and making it lighter, and making it so we think more with more flexibility and with more discrimination. We communicate, we ponder, and we reflect on things more. Now again, this is very supportive of Mercury. The Sun, you can see how the Sun can get bogged down in Capricorn areas of life. So the Sun, when it's in Saturn-ruled signs, tends to get slowed down. The Sun likes things to be fast and, even somewhat aggressive and inspiring and hopeful and, in many ways getting by on things that are inspirational, right? And Saturn is very much about all the practical concerns, all the worries of life. When it's in Capricorn, it's more of the literally like the material concerns, the material worries, the things that we can't just sort of will our way through, right? When it goes into Aquarius, it's more about that individuality getting watered down, right? But when it's in Capricorn, it's more about that individuality having to slow down and being aware of all of the problems and the concerns and the difficulties and stresses. So again, this is why the Sun in Capricorn doesn't feel like it's operating in its highest way, because again, the Sun is that glory of our individuality that can get through difficulty because we're inspired towards something bigger and something higher. Sort of like the Divine Father energy. Even though the father might hate his job and hate what he has to do, if he's going to provide for his family, he gets through it because he keeps his eyes on the bigger purpose. And that bigger purpose compels him forward. It's not about his personal enjoyment, it's about the goal. And sacrificing for the family and all that is just part of it. So these are all qualities of the Sun. And again, when it gets in Saturn signs, we tend to just be very aware of all the problems. Capricorn especially, because it's also psychological, internal. It's more sort of emotional about the problems in life. So when you get Sun and Mercury both in Capricorn, those qualities of the individual become subsumed by a more intellectual, detailed approach where we're perhaps not as confident. We're kind of questioning ourselves a little bit more and finding new ways of doing things rather than just following our inspirations. So again, it can also be show where we might tend to lose our focus, lose our confidence, not feel so confident about what is it I'm doing again, and instead just have to get through it by pushing, by just sort of plodding ahead, plodding forward, and somewhat based on fear, like afraid to kind of stop halfway. There's a saying, if you're going through hell, keep going, right? And Capricorn is kind of that. It can be the kind of feeling of hell, or the feeling of something difficult and stressful, and the Sun is about just sort of continuing through. So it can feel like when the Sun is in Capricorn that we're just sort of getting through it because it's better than stopping, and there's some light at the end of the tunnel, right? So it's more of that kind of forward momentum rather than the quality of the Sun, which is like, oh, I'm so inspired to keep doing this big thing, and da-da-da-da. So of course, Sun in Capricorn can make for hard work, it can make for achievement, because the Sun has to do with hard work, Capricorn has to do with hard work, but it's often for different reasons and different purposes. But Mercury there makes it more light, makes it more intellectual, makes it more creative, finding new ways to do things, and having that power of the Sun, and perhaps the confidence that usually drives us from the Sun, be less important And the thing that's more important is using our skills, using our intelligence. It's a good time to really consider new options as we're grappling a little bit with our confidence and with our vision. Instead, what's more powerful is, oh, well, maybe I can learn this thing and develop this skill, and this can help me be more, clever and crafty. And again, it doesn't mean that we lose our way, totally, because we always maintain a certain vision. But during that time, like if it's a transit, for example, during that time, like each year, we can know when the sun goes through Capricorn, often Mercury will join it, that during that time, maybe we're not going to feel as inspired and driven and all of that. The sun has just come from Sagittarius. Sagittarius to Capricorn is where all that inspiration becomes hard work, commitment, focus. And again, the sun is like, but I want to be inspired. And it's like, okay, you were just inspired last month. Now focus and commit, even when it's not all inspiring, right? So there can be that kind of feeling. And so when Sun and Mercury are joined, Mercury says, don't worry that you're not so inspired, and that, just keep going, and let's develop some skills as we're going along. Because again, when we're not just getting by through our inspiration and our power, our personal will, when we're not so sure about that, it's a good time to sort of think about other things. Listen to what other people have said. Look around and notice how other people have been successful, and listen more to what's going on. One of the great skills of Mercury, it's not just speaking, it's also listening. Communication is not just what you want to say. It's also what others have said, and your ability to listen to it and adjust. That's where real intelligence comes from. And so particularly when Mercury is in an earth sign, it's great for listening and integrating through the faculty of listening. In fact, one of the nakshatras in Capricorn is even called Shravana, which means listening. So again, ponder this Mercury Sun in Capricorn and what that means. Think of the principle of when planets join, masculine or feminine signs, when they share elements, their relationship with the rulers, and then when those things come together, you'll see how one influences the other. It's not just sort of pro forma, Mercury and Sun, they do this. Of course, it's totally different if it's in Sagittarius, or if it's in Pisces, or if it's in Leo. They're totally different. So this is how you can expect it to be in Capricorn, Sun, Mercury, and it's a good time to just stay the course, stay inspired, and develop your skills, develop your ideas, and get ready for the next cycle when the sun goes into Aquarius, when you can then share them more with the world. It's more external and whatnot.